It mostly happens late at night when everything is quiet. Almost everyone experiences it. You're lying in bed, maybe scrolling on your phone, maybe staring at the ceiling, and a thought slips in that you didn't invite. You're making more money than you used to, more than you ever imagined you would, honestly. And yet, your chest still feels tight when you think about money. Not panic, not crisis, just this quiet, persistent tension. By morning, you should feel better, but somehow you don't. And that confusion is almost worse than being broke. Most of us grow up with a very simple story about money. If you're stressed, it means you're not earning enough. If you're anxious, it means you haven't made it yet. And once you cross the right number, whatever that number is supposed to be, everything should finally calm down. So, when the stress sticks around even after the raise, the promotion, or the better job, we assume something must be wrong with us. We think we're ungrateful, or bad with money, or secretly irresponsible. But what if the problem isn't that you don't make enough? What if the problem is that income was never designed to fix the kind of stress you're feeling? Because there's a difference between financial stress caused by not having enough money and financial stress caused by how your life is structured around that money. And most people never learn the difference. Here's what usually happens. You start out earning very little. Every expense seems dangerous. More money at that stage really does help. It buys breathing room. It buys safety. But then something subtle changes. As income rises, life quietly rearranges itself around it. You move to a better place, your fixed expenses grow. Your lifestyle increases your expenses, and slowly, without noticing, your money stops being a buffer and starts being fuel for a more complex machine. A machine that now requires that income just to keep running. This is where stress sneaks back in. Not because you're failing, but because your financial system has become fragile. Let me explain what I mean by that. Imagine two people earning the same salary. One has low fixed costs, flexible choices, room to adjust. The other has high fixed costs, payments that don't care how high or low their salary is. On paper, they earn the same. Emotionally, they live in completely different worlds. One feels resilient. The other feels trapped. And this is the part most people miss. Stress comes less from how much you earn and more from how much freedom your money gives you. There's also something else happening in your head. Humans adapt incredibly fast. The raise that felt huge 6 months ago is now just your normal. The comfort you thought would make you relax becomes the baseline you protect. So instead of thinking, I'm finally safe, your brain starts thinking, I can't lose this. And that's a very different emotional experience. Stress shifts from survival to maintenance, from how do I get by to how do I keep this from falling apart? That kind of stress doesn't show up as panic. It shows up as constant low-level worry. You start doing mental math in the background of your life. You hesitate before taking days off. You feel pressure to keep performing, even when you're tired. And it's confusing because from the outside, everything looks fine. This is why people often feel lonelier about money as they earn more. When you were struggling, stress made sense. Now it feels illegitimate. You tell yourself you shouldn't complain. Other people have it worse. You're lucky. You're doing well. So you carry the stress quietly. And because no one talks about this phase openly, it feels like a personal failure instead of a structural one. But the truth is, this stage is incredibly common. It's the moment where money stops solving problems automatically and starts amplifying how your life is designed. If you structure your financial system on the belief that everything is going right, stress becomes permanent, no matter how high your income goes. Here's a simple but uncomfortable idea. Fixed costs are stress magnets. Rent or mortgage, car payments, insurance, subscriptions, childcare, debt. None of these are bad on their own, but together they create obligation. And obligation is what turns income into pressure. If your income is mostly locked into expenses, making more money brings less relief. Because every raise doesn't feel like freedom, it feels like protection against collapse. You're not working toward peace, you're working to keep things steady. That's exhausting. At some point, usually after years of chasing the next level, something clicks. You realize the goal was never to eliminate stress entirely. It was to reduce fragility, to build a life that can bend a little without breaking, and that requires a different question than, how do I make more? It asks, how much of my life depends on this income continuing exactly as it is? That question changes everything, because once you see money as a tool for flexibility instead of validation, decisions start to shift. Not dramatically, not overnight, but quietly. It's rarely a sudden income jump. It's small things that compound emotionally. Knowing you could handle an unexpected bill without panic, having space to say no, having time that isn't fully monetized. It's the feeling that if something goes wrong, your entire life doesn't unravel. That feeling doesn't come from a number. It comes from margin, and margin is psychological as much as it is financial. So what do you do with this? You don't need to downsize your life or reject ambition. You don't need extreme frugality or financial perfection. You just start paying attention to one thing: how much flexibility your money gives you. Not how impressive it looks, not how fast it grows, how flexible it feels. You start noticing which expenses actually make your life better and which ones just make it harder to change direction. You stop assuming that more income automatically equals more peace and start designing your life so that your peace doesn't depend on constant growth. That shift alone reduces stress even before anything changes on paper. If you're making more money and still feel stressed, there's nothing wrong with you. You're not ungrateful. You're not bad with money. You're not failing some invisible test. You're just discovering what most people discover eventually. Money can support peace, but it can't create it on its own. Peace comes from breathing room, from flexibility, from knowing that your life isn't one missed paycheck away from tension. And you don't have to solve all of that at once. You just have to start noticing what your money is really doing for you. Progress doesn't come from perfection, it comes from awareness, and that's more than enough to begin.